Hello viewers, I want to welcome you to join to this lesson. We are going to cover the second part of elements of weather, that is precipitation. Remember yesterday we just introduced the topic and we just did the temperature as the first factor, as the first element of weather. So about definition, precipitation is a general term referring to the various forms of moisture which fall from the atmosphere to the earth's surface. So actually the most important thing is to understand that precipitation is an umbrella term. It is a general term used to refer to the various forms of moisture which fall from the atmosphere to the earth's surface. And now it is formed when water vapor is in the atmosphere condenses below dew point. That is when precipitation or these forms of moisture is being formed. Now let's look at the hygroscopic particles, or what we call the condensation nuclei. These are particles. We are actually looking at this part. So they are what we call as hygroscopic particles. They are particles in the atmosphere which absorb water and act as nuclei around which water vapor can condense. Some of the examples of these hygroscopic particles include, they include dust particles. We have the dust particle. Another example is salt. We have smoke particles. We have pollen grains. We have the negative ions and even dust particles. Okay, those are some of the things which really come to make the various forms of moisture in the atmosphere. Okay, we want now to look at the major forms of precipitation, because when we were doing the introduction, we said that precipitation is actually a general term that is used to refer to various forms of moisture in the atmosphere, from the atmosphere to the earth's surface. So some of the forms of precipitation include, we have dew, frost, snow. So we have snow that. We also have a mist and fog. We have also rainfall. We have sleet. There is hail and rain. So let's start with the dew so that we see what it's all about. And so we say dew is the water droplet formed on the ground or on the objects near the ground, or that is due to condensation of water vapor. This is actually very early in the morning. You'll be able to see some water droplets on surfaces of objects like the roof, or even the grass, or even some other objects. That is what we call a dew. Now there is a term called dew point. There's a term called dew point because even we said that precipitation is formed when water vapor in the atmosphere condenses below dew point. So it is actually important to understand what dew point is, whereby we say it is the temperature at which the water vapor in the air becomes saturated and condenses on any available surface to form tiny droplets of dew. So it is actually the temperature. It is actually the temperature. So it is the temperature where the water vapor in the air becomes saturated and condenses on any available surface to form tiny particles of dew. So that is actually what we refer to as a dew point. Dew point. So dew, of course, we have defined in this that part. So we want to look at some of the conditions necessary for the formation of dew. Conditions necessary for the formation of dew, because if it is not for this condition, then we are not going to have dew being formed. So number one, the air on the ground should become. The reason being so that it can remain in contact with the ground long enough to be cooled below its dew point, So the reason is because it's to remain in contact with the ground long enough to be cooled below dew point. So that is actually the reason why the air on the ground should be calm. The other point, the other condition is that daytime temperature should be warm. The daytime temperature should be warm. So it is because this is supposed to accelerate evaporation, providing a lot of water vapor in the air, for dew to form. So to accelerate evaporation, providing a lot of water vapor in the air for dew to form. That is number 2. Number three is actually the sky should be cloudless at night. And this is to accelerate the rate at which the earth loses the heat gained during the day. The earth loses the heat that was gained during the day. So remember, each and every condition, there's a reason for why it is happening. And eventually, that is what is going to lead to formation of dew. Now we move to the second form of precipitation, which is called hail. We have hail. So these are spherical lumps of ice droplets that fall on the ground as hailstone. That other book refer to it as hailstone, but it is just the same thing. So they are spherical lumps. So actually the point here is that hail are spherical lumps of ice droplets which are falling on the ground as hailstone. Okay, let's move to frost as another form, and we say frost are tiny ice crystals deposited on objects on the ground. They are tiny ice crystals deposited on objects on the ground. So that is actually the frost, which is also another form of precipitation. Snow is another form of precipitation, and these are just numerous tiny ice crystals that falls on the ground. There are numerous ice crystals that falls on the ground, and actually they are found on top of mountains, high mountains, or even any raised land feature like a hill, plateau, etc. Let's look at the sleet. Sleet is a mixture of rain and snow, or partially melted snow that falls on the earth's surface, or other surface of the earth. So it is a mixture of, it is a combination of rain and snow, which eventually fall on the earth's surface. Rime is also another form of precipitation, and we say they are tiny ice crystals formed when supercooled tiny water droplets are blown by wind and deposited on objects whose temperature is below freezing point. Freezing point actually is the 0 degrees, so when we say it is below freezing point, then of course it will be negative something. Okay, so the next part is fog and mist. And fog and mist are masses of tiny water droplets suspended in the lower atmosphere. This is actually some of the water droplets that suspends in the lower atmosphere, especially when you are driving on a given highway. You'll be able to see them very early in the morning or even late night. So those are fog and mist. Now, they are formed when air is cooled. That is the most important thing about formation that you should be taking into consideration. It is formed when air is cooled below the dew point, but the resultant water droplets remain suspended in the atmosphere. That is why it is only experienced near the Earth's surface. Now, the term fog is used when visibility reduces to less than a kilometer and the relative humidity exceeds 95%, whereas the first part is about fog and the second part is the mist. So we are saying that fog is formed when visibility, okay, it is actually used, the term fog is used when visibility reduces to less than 1 kilometer and the relative humidity exceeds 95%. Now let's look at how when the term mist is being used. So it is used when visibility exceeds 1 kilometer. When visibility exceeds 1 kilometer, that is the mist. Okay, so we want to look at some of the factors or conditions that are ideal for the formation of fog and mist. So one is long nights during the colder months in areas experiencing winter season. So we have the long nights, but now during colder months. Number two, wind must be light or calm to hold water droplets in suspension, because it is formed when air is cooled below dew point and remain suspended near the Earth's surface or in the lower atmosphere. So the wind must be calm. The other thing is there must be clear sky. Or absence of clouds, of course, to permit free terrestrial radiation. The other one is there must be sufficient moisture in the air. And the temperature inversion should be at low level. Or a low level temperature inversion. That is also another factor. And lastly, there should be sufficient supply of condensation nuclei. Condensation nuclei we talked about to be the hygroscopic particles like smoke, we have dust, etc. So there's a terminology which is arrived when smoke and fog combines. So a mixture of smoke and fog gives us what we call smog, which is common in industrial and port areas. So we have smog. It is a mixture of smoke and fog. Now let's look at, as we finish, types of fog. We look at types of fog, and number one is radiation or ground fog. And this type of fog is formed where air is in contact with the ground. That is the first one. So about the formation, it is formed when air is in contact with the ground and cooled by terrestrial radiation at night. That is when it will be formed. Number two is advection fog. Or what we call sea fog. This is formed when warm and moist air passes over a cooler land or water surface. So about the formation, so that is advection fog, or some other, we can also call it sea fog. Number three is hill fog, and this type of fog is formed as a low sheet cloud in the hills as a result of moist airstream advancing inland from the sea. So we have that. Frontal fog is the fourth type of fog, which is formed when warm moist air is cooled from below as it rises over the cold air. when you talk about frontal, then it is actually where the warm moist air is coming into contact or meeting a cold air, and they're going to meet at a certain region called the frontal region. That leads to formation of a frontal fog or a frontal rainfall or cyclonic. Let's move to the other type, which is a steam fog. A steam fog is a type which is formed when cold air passes over warm water, which then appears to be steaming. So you'll be able to see this very early in the morning or late evening on the surface of water body. The other one and the last one is the ice fog. The ice fog. It is formed when water vapor is converted directly into ice crystal when temperatures are below freezing point. It is actually common over the Arctic Ocean. And it is about the formation. About the formation, we have said that it is when water vapor is directly converted into ice crystal when temperatures are below its freezing point.